we want to continue with causes of inflation. The last class we talked about demand pull inflation. But today we want to talk about another cause of inflation, another factor that could bring about inflation, which is cost push inflation. So when we talk about cost push inflation, it occurs in the supply side of the economy. So look at what I wrote. Cost push inflation, it occurs as a result of changes in the supply side of the economy. This implies that cost push inflation occurs due to rising costs. So we have cost push inflation because there's an increase in the cost of production for firms. So the supply side is witnessing an increase in cost. As a result, they have to increase the prices of their goods, which brings about cost push inflation. So what are the sources of cost push inflation? What are the reasons why we have cost push inflation? The first one, increasing wages. An increase in wage rate will have a significant impact on the cost of production because wage is part of the national income. So if wage rate is increasing in an economy, it means the cost of production for firms would have increased because they have to pay more to workers. And as a result of that, they might be witnessing an increasing cost, which have to be passed on to customers, which brings about increasing prices. That is about increasing wages. The second one, higher prices of imports. The world economy might be witnessing what we call economic boom. As a result, there might be increase in importation. So an increase in importation, which means an increase in the demand for importation might have caused an increase in the price of importation of raw materials. And if importation of raw materials increases, then the demand for raw materials would have increased, leading to an increase in the cost of production or an increase in the cost of raw materials imported. So an increase in the cost of raw materials imported is also going to be a cost that will be passed on to customers. The third one, government raising indirect taxes. Tax is a levy imposed by government for the production of goods and services. So if government increases taxes, what does that imply? It means that indirect taxes, it means that subsidy would have reduced. And if subsidy reduces, what happens here? The cost of production for suppliers would have increased. And if the cost of production for suppliers increases, they would have to pass their cost to the customers. So government raising indirect taxes would mean that subsidy is reducing. And if subsidy reduces, it means firms' cost of production would have risen. And if the cost of production for firms increases, they wouldn't have any other choice than to pass on that increased prices to customers. Note, inflation sometimes might be primarily as a result of increasing demand, other times due to rising cost of production. So inflation most of the time, inflation is about demand pull inflation. It's from the demand side of the economy, based on the fact that there's an increase in demand, or there's an increase in the demand for goods and services. Reason being that the economy is witnessing a rise in income, which means demand to be increasing. So most of the time, the inflation is always about the demand side of the economy. But other times, it could be supply side because of an increase in the cost of production. But when we have an economy that is stable but growing without any demand side shock or supply side shock, then it could be the mixture of cost push and demand pull inflation. So I will use the graphical representation of this to explain further about reasons why we have inflation. The first graph here is talking about how the short-run aggregate supply shifts upward from SRE-S1 to SRE-S2. So if a fall from a leftward shift from SRE-S1 to SRE-S2 would mean that supply in the economy has fallen. And if supply in the economy has fallen, firms do not have any other choice than to increase the price from P1 to P2. So a fall in the short-run aggregate supply curve from SRE-S1 to SRE-S2 will increase the price from P1 to P2. That's one of the reasons why we have cost push inflation. And the second one is about a fall in aggregate demand. So as soon as there's an increase in the price of goods and services, firms would always, can you just place it down, please? As soon as there's this, the first one is talking about short-run aggregate supply. Now here, a fall in aggregate demand from AD1 to AD2 will lead to a fall in price level from P1 to P2. So consumers will also want to reflect. What do? They reduce their demand from AD1 to AD2. So a leftward shift in the aggregate demand curve from AD1 to AD2 will reduce the price from P1 to P2. So this is a response from consumers based on the fact that there's an increase in supply, or there's an increase in the price level. So that's about the figure 4. Then I go back to figure 3, which talks about an increase in the short-term aggregate supply from SRS1 to SRS2. This will fall in the price. So here, if there's an increase, that means a rightward shift from SRS1 to SRS2. This represents that there is an increase in supply. So an increase in supply will make surplus. So if there's surplus within the economy, the price of goods and services will fall from P1 to P2. Here, an increase, a rightward shift from SRS1 to SRS2 reduces the price from P1 to P2. While the other one here, so whenever there is a short one, for example this, a leftward shift from SRS1 to SRS2 increases the price from P1 to P2. Here there's shortage. So if whenever there's shortage in the supply side of the economy, the price of goods and services increases. This shortage might be as a result of increasing higher prices for imports. It could be as a result of increasing wages. It could be as a result of government taking away indirect taxes. But if government increases subsidy here, then the production costs will fall, and we're going to have an increase in the supply curve in figure 3. So we are having an increase in supply curve here because government has taken away indirect taxes, or government has increased subsidies. So if government increases subsidies, or the cost of importation reduces, or the cost of wages reduces, that will bring about increase in supply curve. So that means there's going to be surplus in the supply side of the economy. And whenever there's surplus within the supply side of the economy, the short-term aggregate supply curve will shift rightward from SRS1 to SRS2, making the price of goods and services fall from P1 to P2. So that's all what brings about inflation. Thank you.